Commander Lee Daeho stared at the massive screen in front of him. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the human starship New Sol. The peaceful morning had turned into a nightmare in just 3 hours. "Sir, we lost contact with New Geneva Colony," reported Captain Park Jin-woo from his station. His voice was steady, but Lee could see the fear in his young officer's eyes. "That makes 8 colonies gone silent." Lee gripped the armrest of his command chair. 8 human colonies. 8 worlds where millions of people lived, worked, and raised their families. All silent. No distress calls. No emergency signals, nothing. "What about the research station on Kepler 442b? Lee asked. "Dr. Kim So-min's team went dark 20 minutes ago," Park replied. The last transmission was strange. Lee had known So-min for 10 years. She was one of the best scientists in human space, studying alien plants and animals on distant worlds. If her station went silent, something terrible was happening. The bridge doors opened with a soft hiss. Intelligence Officer Nam Tae-young rushed in, carrying a data pad. His face was pale. "Commander, we intercepted alien communications," Nam said, breathing hard. "The Valtech Collective is claiming responsibility. They're calling it a cleansing operation. The Valtech." Lee knew them well. Tall reptilian creatures with advanced technology and a powerful military. Humans had traded with them for 50 years. There had been small disputes about territory, but nothing serious. Why would they attack human colonies? "Show me," Lee ordered. Nam activated the main screen. The image of a Valtech general appeared. His scales were dark green, almost black. His yellow eyes looked cold and empty. Lee recognized him. General Korth, one of the Valthech's most powerful leaders. "Citizens of the galaxy," Korth spoke in perfect galactic standard language. "Today, the Valtech Collective has completed a necessary action. The human infection has been removed from 12 star systems." Lee felt his blood turn cold. "Infection? What did that mean?" Korth continued. "Humans are a viral species. They consume resources without limit. They spread across worlds like a disease. Left unchecked, they would have destroyed the balance of our galaxy. We have saved all other species from this fate." The message ended. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's engines. "Sir," Park said quietly. "Incoming transmission from Admiral Chen's fleet." "Put it through." Admiral Chen appeared on screen. Her uniform was torn and there was blood on her forehead. Behind her, Lee could see smoke and sparks from damaged equipment. "Daeho, thank God you're alive," Chen said. "We barely escaped the attack on Kepler Prime. They came out of nowhere. Ships we couldn't see on sensors until they were already firing." "How many survived?" Lee asked. Chen's face fell. "Maybe 30,000 from Kepler Prime. The other colonies..." She shook her head. "I don't think anyone made it out. 30,000. Lee tried to process the number. 3 days ago, there were over 50 million humans living in the 12 systems. Now maybe 30,000 were alive. They're using some kind of bioweapon too," Chen continued. "Anyone who breathed the air after their ships passed overhead. They died within minutes. But those of us in sealed environments survived. Bioweapons, invisible ships, coordinated attacks across multiple star systems. This wasn't just an attack. This was planned genocide. All human ships are to retreat to the asteroid belt in the Sol system," Chen ordered. "Send the message on all frequencies. Anyone who's still alive needs to get to the belt. It's the only place we might be safe." Over the next 6 hours, more human ships arrived at the asteroid belt. Each captain brought the same story. Sudden attacks by invisible ships, bioweapons that killed anyone not in a sealed environment, orbital bombardments that turned cities into ash. Lee counted the survivors. 47 ships, maybe 50,000 people total. That was all that remained of humanity's space empire. On the 3rd day, they received another broadcast from General Korth. This time, he was speaking to the entire galaxy. "The human threat has been eliminated," Korth announced. "All 12 human systems have been sterilized. The galaxy is now safe from their consumption. We expect all civilized species to support this action." One by one, alien governments issued statements. The peaceful Altani Federation expressed understanding for the Valthech position. The Centauri Trade Union said they respected the Valthech's right to protect galactic resources. The Rigel Council offered conditional support for necessary defensive actions. No one condemned the genocide. No one offered to help the human survivors. 50 years of trade, diplomacy, and friendship meant nothing when faced with Valtech military power. Dr. Kim So-min found Lee in his private quarters that evening. She had arrived on one of the last ships to reach the asteroid belt. Her research station had been completely destroyed, but she and 12 other scientists had escaped in a small ship. The bioweapon was specifically designed to target human DNA, she told Lee. This wasn't a standard military operation. They spent years developing something that would only kill us. How long do you think they planned this? Lee asked. At least 5 years, So-min replied. Maybe longer. The weapon is too sophisticated for quick development. Lee stared out the small window at the asteroids floating in space, chunks of rock and metal hiding the last remnants of the human race. So-min, I need you to gather every scientist we have left. Start working on defenses against their bioweapons. Can you do that? She nodded. What are you planning, Dae-ho? Lee turned back to her. His eyes were hard as steel. They think they erased us. They told the galaxy we're extinct, but we're not dead. We're just invisible now. As So-min left his quarters, Lee activated his personal communicator. He sent a message to every ship captain in the belt. All units, this is Commander Lee. Effective immediately, we are implementing Project Ghost Protocol. No transmissions except on emergency frequencies. No contact with any alien species. We are officially dead, and we're going to stay dead until we're ready to remind the galaxy what happens when you try to kill humanity. Lee closed the transmission and looked out at the asteroids again. Somewhere out there, the Valtech were celebrating their victory. They thought the story was over. They had no idea it was just beginning. 5 years had passed since the day the galaxy thought humanity died. Admiral Yoon Hyun-soo floated in the zero gravity of the hidden command center, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Around him, dozens of officers worked quietly at their stations. Every surface was covered with screens showing data, star maps, and surveillance feeds. The asteroid looked like junk from the outside. Old mining equipment, worthless rock, and debris floated around it. Any alien ship scanning the area would see nothing interesting. They had no idea that 50,000 humans lived and worked inside a network of connected asteroids, completely invisible to the rest of the galaxy. Admiral, the morning intelligence report is ready, said Intelligence Officer Nam Tae-young. He had changed a lot in 5 years. His face was thinner, his eyes sharper. Living and hiding had made them all different. Show me the Valtech numbers, Yoon said. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a 3-dimensional map of Valtech space. Red dots marked every Valtech ship, station, and planet. Numbers appeared next to each dot, showing population counts, resource levels, and military strength. Current Valtech population, 37,412,806 individuals, Nam reported, down from 42 million 5 years ago, Yoon nodded. They had been watching, learning, counting. For 5 years, tiny invisible drones had followed every Valtech ship. Microscopic cameras had been planted on every Valtech station. Human infiltrators disguised as other alien species had walked among them, recording everything. What about their military? Yoon asked. Weakening, replied Captain Park Jin-woo, now in charge of military intelligence. They've lost 18% of their fleet in the past 2 years. Not from combat, from accidents, equipment failures, and internal conflicts. Yoon smiled. Those weren't really accidents. Engineer Choi Min-ji approached the Admiral's station. She was small and quiet, but she had built the technology that kept them hidden. Her phantom ships could appear and disappear without leaving any trace on alien sensors. Admiral, the new stealth modifications are complete, Min-ji reported. We can now make our ships look like asteroid debris even when moving at full speed. Excellent. What about Dr. Bay's project? Dr. Bai Ki-jun had spent 5 years studying the Valtech bioweapon that killed billions of humans. He was a geneticist, an expert in how living things worked at the smallest level. What he had discovered would have surprised the Valtech. The immunity treatments are ready for all personnel, Bai said, joining the group. But that's not the interesting part. I've created something better, a targeted biological agent that only affects Valtech physiology. Yoon raised an eyebrow. A bioweapon? More like a truth serum that makes them tell their deepest secrets, combined with a mild poison that causes weakness but not death, Bai explained. Completely undetectable by their medical technology. For 5 years they had built tools of revenge. Invisible ships, perfect surveillance, Biological weapons, infiltration technology. They had studied their enemies until they knew every weakness, every fear, every secret. But the most important discovery had come from Nam Tae-young's deep infiltration missions. Show him the recordings from the Valthek Council meetings, Yoon ordered. A new hologram appeared. It showed Valthek leaders arguing in their government chambers. The translation scrolled across the bottom of the image. Resources are running low, one Valthek official was saying. The human colonies we took over aren't producing as much as we hoped. The other species don't trust us anymore, another added. Trade agreements are being canceled. They're afraid of us. Maybe we made a mistake, a third Valthek said quietly. The humans weren't really a threat. They were just good at growing food and building things. General Korth's voice cut through the argument. The humans are gone. There's no point in regret now. We must focus on maintaining our strength. But even Korth looked tired. The years since the human genocide had not been kind to the Valthek collective. Their society is breaking apart, Nam explained. The genocide cost them more than they gained. Other species fear them but won't trade with them. Their economy is failing. Military morale is low. Yoon turned to look at the main surveillance screen. It showed real-time feeds from dozens of Valthek worlds. He could see their cities, their ships, their people going about their daily lives. None of them knew that human eyes were watching their every move. Sir, said Operative Han Ye-jin, approaching from the communications station. She had spent 3 years disguised as a Rigel trader, moving freely through alien space. I've confirmed the identity and location of every Valthek who participated in the planning or execution of the genocide. How many? 47,216 individuals, including General Korth and his entire command staff. Yoon looked around the command center. These people had survived the worst genocide in galactic history. They had spent 5 years living like ghosts, preparing for this moment. Ladies and gentlemen, Yoon said, his voice carrying to every station in the room. Today we begin Phase 2 of Ghost Protocol. The room fell silent. Everyone stopped working and turned to look at their admiral. For 5 years we've been dead. The galaxy thinks humanity is extinct. They've forgotten about us. They've grown comfortable in their new reality. Yoon's voice grew harder. It's time to remind them that dead things sometimes come back to haunt the living. He activated the main communication system, sending a signal to every hidden human base in the galaxy. All units, this is Admiral Yoon. Operation Erasure begins now. Our enemies wanted to erase us from existence. Let's show them what real erasure looks like. Across the asteroid belt, ships began powering up. Engineers ran final checks on stealth systems. Scientists loaded bioweapons into deployment devices. Intelligence officers reviewed target lists one final time. Dr. Kim So-min, now in charge of the scientific division, appeared on Yoon's personal screen. Admiral, are you sure about this? She asked. Once we start, there's no going back. The galaxy will know we survived. So-min, they tried to commit genocide against our entire species. Yoon replied. They succeeded in killing 50 billion people. Every government in the galaxy either supported them or stood by and watched. He paused, looking at the surveillance feeds showing Valthek families in their homes. But we're not them. We won't kill civilians. We won't target children. We're going after the ones who planned and executed the genocide. And we're going to make sure it never happens again. Yoon closed the communication and turned to his bridge crew. Captain Park, begin selective targeting of Valthek military leaders. Engineer Choi, deploy phantom ships to all major Valthek systems. Dr. Bay, prepare your bioagents for surgical deployment. The officers nodded and began working at their stations. Nam, I want you to hack into every Valthek communication network. When their leaders start disappearing, I want them to receive a message. What should it say, sir? Yoon smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. Tell them, we know where each one lives. We know where each one works. We know where each one sleeps. The ghosts of 50 billion humans are coming for justice. This is only the beginning. As the first human ships left the asteroid belt after 5 years of hiding, Yoon looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, General Korth was probably sleeping peacefully in his bed, thinking his victory was complete. He would learn otherwise very soon. Captain Yang Subin watched the Valthek patrol ship through her stealth vessel's cameras. The enemy ship moved slowly through space, following its regular patrol route around the mining station on Valthek Prime. 7. The Valthek crew had no idea they were being watched. Target confirmed, whispered tech specialist Ko Young Min from his station. Commander Veltak Sor, he was present at the planning meeting for the human genocide. Zhang nodded. Sor was number 43 on their list. In the past 6 months, 42 other Valthek officers had simply vanished. Their ships would be found floating in space, empty. No signs of violence, no indication of what happened to the crew, just empty ships drifting in the darkness. Begin approach, Zhang ordered. Her ship, the Silent Vengeance, moved closer to the patrol vessel. The human stealth technology was perfect. Even at close range, the Valthek sensors showed nothing. To them, the Silent Vengeance looked like empty space. When they were 50 meters away, Zhang activated the capture beam. It was a new invention, created by engineer Choi Minji. The beam could move through shields and armor without damaging them, but it would make any living creature inside the target ship fall asleep instantly. Beam deployed, Ko reported. All life signs on the target ship are unconscious. Move us into position for docking. The Silent Vengeance attached itself to the Valthek ship like a parasite. Human boarding teams moved through the connection, wearing full environmental suits. They found the Valthek crew sleeping at their stations exactly as expected. 20 minutes later, the humans returned with Commander Sor. The other Valthek crew members had been given memory-erasing drugs. When they woke up, they would remember nothing about the past day. They would report a minor equipment malfunction and return to base, but Commander Sor would not be returning with them. While Captain Zhang's team was capturing Valthek officers, Operative Han Ye-jin was working inside the enemy government itself. She had spent 2 years creating a perfect disguise as a Valthek intelligence officer named Kesitar. The biosuit she wore changed her appearance completely, and Dr. Bay's genetic modifications allowed her to speak and move like a real Valthek. Han walked through the corridors of the central command station on Valthek Prime. Her false identity gave her access to high-level military meetings. For months, she had been feeding false information to the Valthek leadership, making them suspicious of each other. Officer Kesitar called General Korth as she entered the strategy room. What news from Intelligence Division? Disturbing reports, General. Han replied in perfect Valthek language. We have evidence that Commander Veltak Sor was in contact with separatist groups before his disappearance. This was a lie, of course. Sor had been loyal to the Valthek government until the humans captured him, but Han had planted false evidence in the Valthek computer systems that suggested otherwise. Separatists. Korth's yellow eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting Sor was a traitor? The evidence is unclear but concerning, Han said. It's possible the recent disappearances are connected to an internal rebellion rather than external threats. Korth struck the table with his clawed hand. I knew it. Some of our own people are working against us. Han hid her satisfaction. Over the past months, she had convinced the Valthek leadership that their missing officers were defectors or traitors. The paranoia was spreading through their military like a disease. I recommend increased surveillance of all senior officers, Han suggested. We cannot trust anyone completely. Meanwhile, in a secret facility hidden in the asteroid belt, Dr. Lim Jae-hyun was conducting psychological warfare operations that reached across the galaxy. Lim was an expert in how minds worked, especially how to create fear and confusion in enemy populations. His team had hacked into every Valthek communication network. They sent mysterious messages to Valthek families, always at night when people were trying to sleep. The messages were simple but terrifying. We know where you live. Your leaders lied to you. The humans remember everything. The messages appeared on personal communicators, entertainment screens, and even official government channels. No matter how often the Valthek tried to block them, new messages kept appearing. Dr. Lim also created false news reports about Valthek officers turning against their own government. These reports spread through alien networks, making other species believe the Valthek collective was falling apart from internal conflicts. The psychological pressure was working. Valthek civilians were afraid to leave their homes at night. Military officers were suspicious of their own comrades. Government officials were spending more time investigating loyalty than managing their empire. Back on Admiral Yoon's command ship, Tech specialist Ko Young-min was running the Hunter AI system he had developed. The AI tracked every Valthek in the galaxy using data from millions of surveillance drones. It could predict where any individual Valthek would be at any given time. "Admiral, the AI has identified the next target," Ko reported. "Sub-Commander Thekful Morn will be inspecting Supply Station Gamma 7 in 3 days. He was responsible for deploying bioweapons against the human colony on New Geneva." Yoon studied the target information. Morn had personally overseen the deaths of 8 million humans, including many children. The man deserved justice. "Send the coordinates to Captain Zhang's team," Yoon ordered. 3 days later, Sub-Commander Morn's inspection ship was found floating empty near Supply Station Gamma 7. The station's security cameras showed nothing unusual. The inspection had proceeded normally until Morn had simply vanished from the station's corridor, leaving no trace behind. The disappearance followed the same pattern as 43 others. No violence, no damage to equipment, no witnesses. Just another Valthek officer gone without explanation. General Korth was studying reports of the latest disappearance when his personal communicator activated. The message that appeared on his screen made his blood freeze. 37,412 Valthek remain. We know where each one lives. We know where each one works. We know where each one sleeps. Justice is coming. Korth's hand shook as he read the message again. The number was exactly correct. He had just received the latest population count that morning. How could anyone have such precise information? He called an emergency meeting of his remaining senior staff. When they gathered in the secure conference room, Korth looked around at faces filled with fear and suspicion. "Someone is hunting us," he said without introduction. 44 officers have disappeared in 6 months. Our communications are being monitored. Our movements are being tracked. "Sir, intelligence suggests this is an internal rebellion," offered Colonel Shekhtar Voss. "Disloyal elements within our own forces." Korth stared at him. "Colonel, the enemy just sent me our exact population numbers. Do you think rebels could gather that kind of information?" The room fell silent. Several officers looked uncomfortable. "Sir," said another officer quietly, "there are rumors among the crew. They say the humans aren't really dead." Korth laughed bitterly. "Impossible. We sterilized 12 systems. We confirmed the deaths of over 50 billion humans. There might be a few survivors hiding somewhere, but not enough to threaten us." But even as he spoke, Korth felt doubt growing in his mind. The attacks were too precise, too well coordinated. The intelligence gathering was too sophisticated. Could a few thousand human survivors really be capable of this? His personal communicator chimed again. Another message appeared. "General Korth, you killed our children while they slept. You poisoned our air while we breathed. You turned our cities to ash while we dreamed of peace. Did you really think we would just disappear quietly into the darkness? The hunt has only begun." Korth looked around the conference room at his officers. Some were staring at their own communicators, which were also receiving messages. Others were backing toward the door, suddenly afraid to be in the same room as their commander. "How many of our people were involved in the genocide planning?" Korth asked quietly. "Approximately 47,000 participated in planning or execution," replied his intelligence chief. Korth felt a chill run down his spine. 44 officers had disappeared so far. "That left over 46,000 potential targets, sir," whispered Colonel Voss. "If the humans really are alive, if they're really doing this, how long will it take them to reach all of us?" Korth did the mathematics in his head. At their current rate, the humans could eliminate every person involved in the genocide within 5 years. But that assumed they didn't increase their pace of operations. Another message appeared on every communicator in the room simultaneously. "We are coming for all of you. One by one, day by day, year by year, until justice is complete. You cannot hide. You cannot run. We are already among you, watching, waiting, hunting. Sleep well, General Korth. Tomorrow justice comes closer." The lights in the conference room flickered and went out. President Lee Jinnah stood in the command center of New Earth Station, a massive space structure hidden in the outer reaches of the Sol system. Around her, dozens of screens showed preparations happening across the galaxy. Today, after 5 years of hiding, humanity would reveal itself to the universe. "All Phantom fleets report ready, Madam President," said General Song Woo-jin. 300 systems, 1,000 ships. Perfect positioning achieved, Lee nodded. The plan had taken months to coordinate. Human ships were positioned near every major trade route, diplomatic station, and military base in the galaxy. All were invisible, waiting for the signal to decloak simultaneously. Ambassador Shin Bora, are the recording systems ready? Lee asked. Yes, Madam President. Every alien government will receive our broadcast at the same time. The evidence packages are prepared for distribution. Lee looked at the central screen, which showed a timer counting down, 5 minutes until the revelation that would change galactic history forever. In a secured cell deep within the station, former General Korth sat behind energy barriers. The once proud Valtech leader looked older and more tired than his years. His capture 3 weeks ago had been the final operation before today's revelation. Bring him to the broadcast chamber, Lee ordered. 2 guards escorted Korth into the room where Lee would address the galaxy. His hands were bound, and he wore a translation device that would allow him to understand and respond in galactic standard language. General Korth, Lee said, as he was positioned beside her. In a few minutes you're going to help me tell the galaxy the truth about what happened to humanity. Korth looked at her with a mixture of hate and fear. You're making a mistake. The other species will unite against you when they learn what you've done. What we've done. Lee laughed softly. General, you committed genocide against 50 billion innocent people. We've captured or eliminated 47,000 military officers involved in that genocide. We haven't touched a single civilian. Who exactly is the monster here? The timer reached 0. Across the galaxy, human ships began decloaking. On the Altani Federation homeworld, 3 massive human battleships appeared directly above the capital city. They had been invisible in orbit for 6 months. At the Centauri Trade Union's largest commercial station, 20 human vessels materialized around the docking bays. They had been hiding among the regular traffic for over a year. Near the Rigel Council's diplomatic headquarters, the entire human fleet uncloaked in perfect formation. Their ships had been observing every council meeting for 2 years. The same scene played out across 300 star systems. Human ships appeared where they should have been impossible to hide. The message was clear. We have been watching everything. Panic spread through alien communication networks as reports flooded in from every corner of the galaxy. The humans weren't extinct. They were everywhere. President Lee activated the galaxy-wide broadcast system. Her image appeared on every major communication network, from government channels to entertainment systems to personal communicators. Citizens of the galaxy, Lee began, her voice calm and steady. My name is President Lee Jinnah of the Human Coalition. You were told 5 years ago that humanity was extinct. You were lied to. She gestured to General Korth beside her. This is General Korth, former leader of the Valtech military. 5 years ago, he ordered the systematic genocide of the human species. Today, he will help me explain what really happened. The camera focused on Korth's face. He looked directly into the lens, his yellow eyes filled with defeat. Tell them, General, Lee said. Tell them why you tried to exterminate humanity. Korth was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice hollow. Resources were becoming scarce. Humans were expanding rapidly. We believed they would eventually consume everything. So you decided to kill 50 billion people, including children and babies, based on what you thought might happen in the future? Yes, Lee turned back to the camera. For 5 years we have been watching you. All of you. We know about every government meeting, every trade negotiation, every military operation. We know because we have been there, invisible and undetected. The broadcast switched to recorded footage. It showed human operatives walking through alien government buildings, recording secret meetings and gathering intelligence. The recordings were from hundreds of different worlds and species. We could have released bioweapons in your population centers, Lee continued. We could have destroyed your space stations, your fleets, your cities. We had the capability to eliminate any species we chose, but we didn't. More footage appeared. It showed human ships positioned near civilian targets, schools, hospitals, residential areas. The ships had been close enough to attack, but they had simply watched and recorded. Instead, we chose precision over genocide. We targeted only those individuals directly responsible for planning or executing the murder of our people. 47,216 Valtech participated in the genocide. We have captured or eliminated all of them. The camera showed a list of names scrolling across the screen. Every Valtech officer involved in the genocide was accounted for. Captured, eliminated or surrendered. But the Valthek were not alone in their crime, Lee said, her voice growing harder. Every government in this galaxy either supported the genocide or remained silent while it happened. New footage appeared. It showed alien leaders celebrating the elimination of the human threat, trade agreements being signed to divide former human colonies, military alliances being formed to maintain galactic stability after the genocide. The Altani Federation issued a statement supporting the Valtek's difficult but necessary decision. The Centauri Trade Union offered to help distribute former human resources. The Rigel Council voted to recognize Valtek claims to human territory. Representatives from these governments appeared on screen, their own recorded words played back to them. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. For 5 years you all lived with the benefits of genocide, Lee continued. You took our worlds, our resources, our trade routes. You divided our territories among yourselves. You never asked what happened to human children, human families, human dreams. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Today, that ends. Today, humanity establishes the Never Again protocols. No species will ever again have the power to commit genocide against another. We will monitor every military buildup, every weapons development, every territorial expansion. We will prevent what happened to us from happening to anyone else. The broadcast showed the scope of human surveillance capabilities. Tiny drones around every planet, listening devices in every government building, tracking systems following every military ship. The network was vast, sophisticated, and completely undetectable. Some of you will resist these protocols, Lee acknowledged. You will claim they violate your sovereignty. You will argue that we have no right to monitor your activities. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes hard as steel. You lost that argument when you stood by and watched 50 billion people die. Your sovereignty ended when you became accomplices to genocide. General Korth shifted uncomfortably beside her. Lee turned to him. General, how many Valthek civilians have we killed in our operations? Korth's voice was barely a whisper. None. How many Valthek children? None. How many Valthek cities have we destroyed? None. Lee faced the camera again. We could have become the monsters you thought we were. We could have chosen revenge over justice. But we are not you. We will not become you. The broadcast switched to show the current state of the Valthek collective. Their military was in ruins, but their civilians were unharmed. Their government had collapsed, but their cities still stood. Their empire was finished, but their people lived. The surviving Valthek, approximately 3,400 individuals, will face individual judgment for their actions. War criminals will be imprisoned. Those who oppose the genocide will be offered rehabilitation and integration into galactic society. Lee's voice softened slightly. We offer the same choice to all species. Accept the Never Again protocols and humanity will share our technology, our knowledge, our protection. Continue to support genocide and oppression, and you will find yourselves increasingly alone in a galaxy that has moved beyond such barbarism. The broadcast ended with a simple image, the human flag, showing Earth and its moon, with the words Never Again written in every known galactic language. As alien governments across the galaxy scrambled to respond to the revelation, President Lee turned to General Korth. You thought you could erase us from existence, she said quietly. Instead, you taught us to become something the galaxy has never seen before. A species that refuses to die quietly, but also refuses to become the evil it fights against. Korth looked at her with something that might have been respect. What happens now? Lee smiled, but it was not unkind. Now we build a galaxy where this never happens again. And you, General, are going to help us do it. Outside the station, human ships maintained their positions throughout the galaxy. They were no longer hidden. They were a promise and a warning visible to all. The age of hidden genocides was over. The age of human guardianship had begun. 1 year after humanity's revelation, Supreme Commander Park Se-young walked through the halls of the Galactic Justice Center, a massive space station orbiting the ruins of what had once been Valthek, Prime. The station served as both courthouse and symbol of the new galactic order that humanity had created. The final group of defendants arrives today, reported Captain Kim Daemin, his aide. 7 Valthek council members, the last of the original genocide planners. Park nodded. Over the past year, the Human Tribunal had processed thousands of cases. War criminals faced imprisonment on secure worlds. Those who had opposed the genocide or been forced to participate received counseling and rehabilitation. Civilians were offered new homes and integration into human society. In the main courtroom, Judge Kwan Miran was preparing for the final trial. She had spent the year hearing testimony, reviewing evidence, and making decisions that would shape the future of galactic justice. The courtroom was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all watching to see how humanity would handle this final judgment. The 7 remaining Valthek council members were brought in. They looked old and tired, their scales gray with age and stress. These were the beings who had voted to authorize the genocide of 50 billion humans. You stand accused of crimes against sentient life, Judge Kwan began, specifically the planned and systematic extermination of the human species. How do you plead? The eldest council member, Velthak Moors, spoke for the group. We plead guilty, Your Honor. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Many had expected the Valthek to maintain their innocence until the end. We were wrong, Moors continued, his voice heavy with regret. We let fear and greed guide our decisions. We convinced ourselves that humans were a threat, but the truth is we were afraid of losing our position as the dominant military power. Judge Kwan studied the defendants. In the past year, you have witnessed how humanity has chosen to handle justice. You have seen war criminals imprisoned rather than executed. You have seen civilians protected rather than punished for their leaders' crimes. You have seen rehabilitation offered rather than revenge taken. She paused, looking out at the gallery filled with observers from across the galaxy. The sentence of this court is life imprisonment, with the possibility of supervised release after 20 years of service to the galactic community. You will spend those years helping to build the monitoring systems that will prevent future genocides. The Valthek defendants accepted their sentence with dignity. As they were led away, Moors turned back to Judge Kwan. Your Honor, may I ask a question? Yes. Why didn't you simply execute us? After what we did, we deserved death. Judge Kwan considered her answer carefully. Because showing mercy to those who showed none is how we prove we are better than what we fight against. Death would be easier for you than living with what you've done. Living and working to prevent future atrocities is both punishment and redemption. While the trials concluded, diplomat Ryu Dongha was working in another part of the station, finalizing the galactic accords that would govern interstellar relations for generations to come. Representatives from 847 different species had signed the Never Again protocols, agreeing to human oversight of their military capabilities. The Zephyrian Collective just signed, reported his assistant, showing him a data pad. That brings us to 97% galactic participation, Ryu smiled. The remaining 3% were small, isolated species that posed no threat to anyone. They would join eventually when they saw the benefits of galactic cooperation under human protection. The protocols were simple but effective. No species could develop weapons of mass destruction without human approval. All military buildups had to be justified and monitored. Any territorial disputes would be mediated by human arbitrators. Most importantly, any attempt to harm civilians of any species would result in immediate human intervention. Sir, incoming transmission from the Altani Federation, his assistant announced. They're requesting human assistance with their border dispute with the Rigel Council. Schedule a mediation session, Ryu replied. Send arbitration teams to both systems. This was how conflicts were resolved now. Instead of wars that could escalate into genocides, disputes were settled through human mediation. It was more peaceful, more fair, and infinitely safer for civilian populations. Dr. Kim So-min, now Director of Interspecies Relations, was visiting one of the most successful integration projects. On the world of New Harmony, former Valthek civilians were working alongside humans to rebuild one of the destroyed human colonies. The harvest this year will be record-breaking, reported Velthak Kim, a young Valthek who had taken a human name as part of his integration. The combination of human agricultural techniques and Valthek soil management is incredibly effective. So-min smiled, watching human and Valthek children playing together in the fields. Many Valthek had volunteered to help rebuild the worlds their government had destroyed. It was their way of making amends for the crimes committed in their name. Dr. Kim, called another voice. She turned to see Operative Han Ye-jin approaching. Han now ran the integration programs that helped former enemies become productive members of galactic society. How are the psychological evaluations proceeding? So-min asked. Better than expected, Han replied. Most of the Valthek civilians show genuine remorse for what happened. Many are eager to help with reconstruction efforts. We've had very few incidents of hostility or resistance. It was remarkable how quickly former enemies could become allies when offered genuine forgiveness and a chance to make things right. Back on the main human command station, Admiral Yoon Hyun-soo was reviewing reports from across the galaxy. The invisible monitoring network that had made the human revenge campaign possible now served a different purpose, preventing conflicts before they could escalate. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual military activity in the Sector 7, reported Intelligence Officer Nam Tae-young. The Kralix Empire is building ships faster than their defensive needs require. Analysis? They appear to be preparing for territorial expansion against the Melix Federation. Estimated time frame for aggression, 6 months. Yoon nodded. This was exactly the kind of situation the Never Again protocols were designed to prevent. Dispatch mediation teams to both governments, he ordered. Begin surveillance of Kralix military leaders. If they won't accept peaceful resolution, we'll make it clear that aggression isn't an option. This was the new reality. Humanity's invisible presence prevented wars before they started. The galaxy was more peaceful than it had ever been, not because species had become more virtuous, but because they knew humanity was watching and would intervene to protect the innocent. 10 years after the genocide, Commander Lee Dae-ho, now an elderly man, stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station. The rebuilt colony was more beautiful than the original had been, with parks and schools that honored both human and alien children who had died in the genocide. "Grandfather Lee," called a small voice. He turned to see his granddaughter Lena running toward him. She was followed by her best friend, a young Valthek named Kes who had been born on New Geneva after the reconstruction. "Are you coming to the memorial service?" Lena asked. Lee nodded. Every year on this day, the galaxy observed a moment of silence for all victims of genocide, not just humans, but every species that had suffered systematic extermination throughout galactic history. As they walked to the memorial, Lee reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still injustices, still suffering. But there were no more genocides, no more species-wide exterminations, no more systematic murder of civilians. The memorial service was attended by representatives from hundreds of species. The ceremony honored not just human victims, but Valthek, who had opposed the genocide and died for their principles, alien civilians killed in other conflicts, and all those who had suffered from the hatred that once dominated galactic politics. President Lee Jin-ah, now in her second decade of leadership, delivered the memorial address. "We gather today not to celebrate our survival, but to remember our commitment," she said. "We promised that genocide would never again plague our galaxy. We promised that no species would ever again face extinction at the hands of another. 10 years later, that promise has been kept." She looked out at the diverse crowd, humans, former Valthek, and representatives from hundreds of other species. But this peace was not achieved through fear or domination. It was achieved through justice, mercy, and the recognition that all sentient life has value. We chose to be guardians rather than conquerors, protectors rather than tyrants. After the ceremony, Lee Dae-ho sat with his granddaughter and her Valthek friend in the memorial garden. Lena was asking Kes about Valthek holidays, while Kes wanted to know about human festivals. To them, their friendship was perfectly natural. "Grandfather," Lena said, "my teacher says that once Valthek and humans were enemies. Is that true?" Lee looked at the two children, one human, one Valthek, both innocent of their species' dark history. "Yes, Lena. Once we were enemies. But we learned that being enemies was a choice and we chose differently. What did you choose instead?" Kes asked. Lee smiled, watching the sun set over the rebuilt colony where millions had once died.